we are. Cole Smithey.
Mike Lacy.
Le Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.
So we're starting out today's feast, in which we're talking about François Truffaut's great film, Day for Night. We're drinking some of this Flying Dog, the Truth Double IPA, it's an Imperial. And let's see what the ABV is on this.
It's an 8.7 there.
Yeah, it's good. Nice and strong.
What's the, there's a politician on here? Is this, maybe this is appropriate for today. Today is primary day that we're recording. I'm sure the results are hopefully in for the New York primary, though maybe not from what I'm hearing.
No, it's going to take another hour or so.
Well, maybe another week after all the lawsuits have settled down.
That's for
not
sure.
Later.
That's for sure. I like this beer. I find it very delicious. It's right in my alley. It's got some bitterness.
I've really been convinced on IPAs in the last year, and just the sheer money-saving factor at this point in my life is
I like
wonderful.
to drink one beer and get a good buzz. One beer that tastes really great, and this one fits that bill perfectly. I like the Flying Dog Brewery to begin with, but this one, The Truth, and they're famous for their artwork because Ralph Steadman of Hunter S. Thompson fame, miraculously they got Ralph Steadman to do their artwork. So all of the labels are done by Steadman, and they're just fantastic.
I didn't see that doc on him. Did you see that?
Yeah, it's really good. Really good.
I have to check that out.
Ralph Steadman's a very talented man and very prolific, incredibly prolific. Which brings us to François Truffaut, who would have been more prolific had he lived longer, but he did not make it very far. I think he died when he was in his early 50s.
Oh, no way. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, he died pretty young. And something else that I just found out about him recently was that his parents had wanted nothing to do with him after he made the 400 blows. They never spoke again.
I could see that.
Wow. That's how that went down. So
Yeah. That's like every writer's big fear is like, are they going to know this is about them? Is this going to cause problems? And it seemed like the answer was yes.
I see. To me, that just says that he did the right thing. People like that, you want to weed those people out. You don't need those people around.
Yeah, you're right. You know what? I'm going to quit my job. That's a joke. I just quit my job. Can I point out we've had a theme thus far in the 3 movies we picked? These are all movies that are starring and written by their directors. 2 of them in roles where they played directors, similar to themselves, if not themselves, and one where he plays a dictator, which is kind of like a director.
Right. Yeah, I think we certainly have some of the film within a film theme going, and it's now we've come around to the auteur who invented auteur theory for the French New Wave. François Truffaut, of course, famously started out as a film critic for the Cahiers du Cinéma before choosing to prove that he knew better than everybody else, or at least as well as anybody else, how to make a film. And so Day for Night, his 13th film, pretty much in the middle to latter part of his career.
Is this where people would say he's just cresting the hill of being a sellout and maybe is making commentary on it and pulling himself back out of the trenches of Hollywood style films?
Well, it's an interesting question, and a lot of Truffaut's films, early films, tonally, I think they kind of missed the mark. The Wild Child, I feel like that movie, it's almost there, but I feel like it misses the mark. Same thing with Fahrenheit 451. I know a lot of people love that movie.
But they don't think about it as a Truffaut movie. I honestly, I must have known that, but I totally forgot. To me, that's just a Ray Bradbury adaptation. It's like a Michael Crichton movie, you know?
Sure, I can see that. But I think this is when he was finding his voice, really finding his voice. The film that he made after this is The Story of Adele H., which is just amazing. And I think that he got better toward the end of his career. But this movie, as the title infers, and the Jacqueline Bisset's character in the movie, she's an English actress playing in a film that Truffaut, who plays himself as a filmmaker, is making. It's this melodrama that you can tell it's not going to do. This is not going to be...
It's a garbage movie.
This is not going to be...
I love that. And if he's kind of making fun of the movies he's been making, it's hilarious because it's the shittiest movie. It kind of, at the end, it kind of sounds like it's like this was the movie that bankrupted the studio. Like it's their Cleopatra or something.
Yeah, well, there's some... everything... This is one of those movies where everything happens. You feel that you really do have a backstage pass, and you're hanging out with the grips and the costume people, and everybody's got some kind of personal gripe, and romantic liaisons are happening all around.
It was over the top, but in the way that I've been on a couple film sets, and some, like, one that was as big budget of an indie as you can get, and things really ran true about this, and it wasn't over the top. It wasn't noises off behind the scenes. You really saw the fact that everyone on the film set is eccentric, but nobody more than the actors, and everyone's just randomly getting married with people who they may have had a scene with, maybe not.
Yeah, I love the little details where there's things like they're trying to get the cat to act.
Yeah.
And they've got this kitten that's all of 6 weeks old, and they just cannot get the thing to be interested in this little tray of food that this character has set outside of her hotel room.
All these little bits that clearly just have to come from real experience of decades of making films, and just this... I think what the film's getting at is just this myth-breaking... reality of what it is to make a movie. It's not all just glamour. In fact, pretty much none of it seems like glamour. It's just lots and lots of having to get people to slate while they're making out with their boyfriend. And
well, I love how he treats his alter ego, the Alphonse character, who's played by the always great Jean-Pierre Léaud. And he's such a spoiled child as an actor. And there's one point where he threatens to leave cinema to see what kind of response he'll get. And when he gets a nonplussed response, you can see the look on his face that he's not getting his way this time.
He escapes, and they're like, maybe he's at the airport, he's going to London. And then they find him, and he's at a little go-kart track. And
even when he gets... there's a thing that happens in the story. He's brought on his girlfriend to be the script girl. And... I worked on a film the first time that I went to Cannes. I got cast in this little film that was part of this Gaumont film company had put on this filmmaking camp where everybody went to Cannes and made a little short film over the course of the Cannes Film Festival. And I ended up at the end, when everything was over, I ended up driving back with the script girl and spending a few days.
Did her car break down?
No, spending a few days with their parents at their house and everything.
Was this in like Nice? Was it?
No, this was in the outskirts of Paris.
Have you spent a lot of time in Nice, where this movie is supposed to take place? It probably was filmed.
The only time I spend in Nice is the time that it takes to get into
from the airport.
Yeah,
to get into the Uber copter
or the shuttle to Cannes, which is pretty close. I think it's about 30 kilometers away. Uh-huh. But yeah, so Script Girls anyway. Did
this Script Girl ring true to you?
Yeah, she did. She was she was working her angles, and so she runs off with the stunt man, leaving Alphonse behind. And
you don't even. What I love is like you don't even see them interact right at any point. Like she's with two guys. She's with Alphonse, and then she's been flirting with someone else the entire time. And then suddenly she's run off with the stuntman who's been in 1.5 scenes.
And then the main character is played by in the film within the film is played by the beautiful Jacqueline Bisset, and Woo! She's the only one who can save the film because stupid childish Alphonse is going to run off and abandon the movie. So she sacrifices herself. She goes and sleeps with Alphonse keep him.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. I questioned no one sleeping with anybody. Yeah, of course. Yeah, she did the noble thing. Yeah.
And so the spoiled brat who really gets everything, because he gets to sleep with Jacqueline Bisset. And what does he do? The first thing, he doesn't even go back to sleep because she has to be on set for early costume makeup. And she tells him, just go back to sleep. You got 2 more hours to sleep. I set the alarm. No, what does he do? He gets on the phone to her husband.
Yeah, in the morning, he's like, remember we said we'd run off together. And she's got this look in her eyes like, we never fucking talked about that. Like, what are you talking
This
about?
is textbook bad behavior.
Yeah.
And so
but it's so specific, and it's done. Like the only thing I can compare it to is Ed Norton in Birdman, which is like, oh, someone just tricked you into being yourself in front of a camera for 2 hours.
Absolutely. And so, at the heart of the movie, there's this anti-hero in the guise of Jean-Pierre Léaud's Alphonse, who's the alter ego for Truffaut, and I just find it really something to relish and revel in, seeing Truffaut. There's a moment when he goes to Alphonse's room, and Alphonse has just come out in the hallway, and everybody, the whole crew's there because they're worried about him, and he comes out in his bathrobe with no underwear and asks if anybody can give him money for a whorehouse.
No, he doesn't ask. He says, I need money for a brothel. Just so dramatic.
So Truffaut to the rescue, in true Truffaut form, he goes to the door, knocks on the door, and tells him, look, you need to stay in your room and work on your lines, and I need you for tomorrow. And so you get these little moments because you feel like when that interaction happens between Léaud and Truffaut, that's really how Truffaut was with his actors. And I guess that for me was one of the fundamental joys of the movie, is just seeing how Truffaut addresses people, different crew people. I love the shot. There's a great roving shot, dolly shot, where they're walking and there's a set designer who comes up and he says, oh, we want to see this bungalow, and Truffaut says, oh, show it to me later, and no, he misunderstood. It's just the sketches, and here's the sketches, and Truffaut looks while he's walking to his destination. This is now you see these shots all the time, but when this film was made, that was something really different and interesting.
I brought it up before. I really wonder if Inarritu, I bet he went back to this. I guarantee you he went back to this for Birdman, which is just a series of those shots and is doing the same expose on these types of people. I love in that roaming one, they're showing him cars that they want to blow up, and his only feedback is really like, well, can we make this car blue? Can we have a blue car? Like, what about that blue car? I was like, that's your that's your AD's car. He's like, all right, let's do it. Like, he'll understand. And
then it's a beautiful little triumph that they end up running off the cliff. Oh boy, so sad.
So much of this movie is debunking the artifice of film, not in a very overly philosophical way, but in showing you that people holding a candlestick is really an electric light, and that there's things that I think we're very familiar from in watching movies at this point, and we know how movies are made, even if we've never been on a set. But there are insert shots of just the sprinklers going to fake the rain and things like that, and he's really making a point of showing how false and deconstructed, and he shows take after take after take to break up your illusion that this is just made completely organically and put together without the...
Yeah, he really shows the artifice behind the magic, and also the vulnerability and the fragileness of the actors and what it takes to get the performances. I love there's a scene where this actress who... she's obviously a very skilled actress who's very professional, been around the block, but she just doesn't want to learn her lines, is kind of what I took from it. She wants to just spout off numbers, and Truffaut
Well,
she's Italian.
That's
and
how she
Truffaut
does it.
says,
That's how she does it with Fellini.
right, that's how she does it when she's Italian. I should have added that. And so, of course, Truffaut makes the comment, in France you have to say your lines.
Yeah, that's a real thing, right? That in Italy they didn't record live sound. Everything's dubbed. I mean, at least I've heard that, and I think it's a little fuck you at his friend Federico, probably.
Yeah, and there's also a lot of Fellini-esque elements to the way he's deconstructing the filmmaking process.
It reminded me of Fellini's Amarcord in its beginning and its end, which starts and ends with the same location. It's a full year, I think, in Amarcord, where these little weird fuzzy things come into town, and they start and end with basically the same shot in this, although now there's snow at the end, and it's the same character coming up out of the subway, and it bookends it. I'm not entirely sure. I liked it a lot, and that's not the very end of the movie. Actually, the movie ends with them all packing up, but
the opening stuff is great because it's this huge crane shot with a lot of people interacting. People are coming out of the metro. There's people in front of the cafe, and you hear Truffaut on the bullhorn telling the red car to drive by faster, and telling the lady with the dog to keep walking, and the scene climaxes with Alphonse slapping another man, and they have to keep doing take after take with all of these extras, and then in common film disaster fashion, they end up losing all of the footage, and the insurance company comes and reads them the riot act.
I think that insurance company thing would have been probably one of the more unique things for audiences to learn about this, is that there are so many lawyers and bullshit businessmen involved in making a movie, and so here's my question I want to go into this is, what's he saying? He's saying a bunch of things, but I'm not entirely clear, and I hope we can get some clarity on it. I think one thing he's saying is that the idea of an auteur, maybe? Auteur. Author. If I'm going to call it the Big Feast, I'm going to call him an author.
Okay.
The idea, the author theory.
The film's author.
Is that that's bullshit. The idea that there is a single mind behind the camera framing everything and making a deep point as if they could control every aspect of what appears on frame. It's bullshit. You know what? A lot of times the film got ruined. Your lead actor died, so you had to shoot a stunt double in the back.
Well, I think that what he's one of the main themes that I walked away from it was about, Alphonse is fixated on this question, are women magic? He's like a little 12-year-old kid walking around to everybody
what
knows.
What a French fucking thing to ask.
It's so French. Asking if women are magic. And finally...
And everyone's got an answer.
Like, everyone does have an answer.
Women are not magic, but their legs are.
Right. And Jacqueline Bisset says it better because the answer is of course, it's all or nothing. Yes, women can be magic and not, and same for men, and it has to be that way. It has to be the same for all of us. So
like Alexandre's reason.
Separate.
Some are, others no.
Well, and it's at odds with the this idea of sentimentality. And there's the one scene that they film through the window, the outside window, and the rain's coming down, and Jacqueline Bisset is in the scene wearing a hilarious wig, and you see the distance between what's going on and the artifice of the camera.
So apparently Jean-Luc Godard walked out of this movie, said something like, Truffaut, you have created something entirely false, and they never spoke again, and he hated it.
Right.
And I don't understand that strong of a reaction. I really enjoyed this movie. I am at this point, having finished it minutes ago, basically, am trying to find something deep and powerful to take from it, besides that it was a good time. And one reason I think I'm having that reaction at this moment is that the characters in the real characters within it, not the characters within the movie, are themselves rather shallow and a little cartoonish. And so when you're seeing this deconstruction of the artifice of the filmmaking and contrasting it to these real people, they themselves are quite fake. And I suppose maybe that's the point. But I'm not torn up about their love affairs and their things they're doing, because they seem to be just having a great time doing whatever the fuck they want.
And I think this is the thing that he, there's some tragedy that strikes, and of course some emotional breakups that happen. But the way that he contextualizes it is he shows how much fun it is making a movie and living in this fantasy life is better than the real life, and it's what you live for. So everyone has heartbreak in their life, everyone has these problems, but if you're in this little family making a film, that makes it puts all of that stuff out of the it's not what's important. What's important is filmmaking and cinema, and you get that a lot. Alphonse is always trying to run off to see a movie. It's the most important thing. Whenever a woman, Jacqueline Bisset, wants to go antique shopping, but no, Alphonse he's not going to go with her. He's going to go to a movie.
That's cool that making a movie is better than real life, but why do normal people give a shit about that? You know what I mean? Like it's I think it's a real easy and a fair critique of movies about movies to be like, okay, cool, write about anything but the thing that you do all the time.
Well, Day for Night does have that reputation as being one of the best films about filmmaking around. And I can see why. It's all very dated, but some of the things that, the stuff of filmmaking.
All Wardrobe Girls are that cute. It's not dated. It's so real. And
I
was so in love with that girl.
And somebody's got to hold that boom mic. They're not putting it on a stand. They got to have a body because that thing's got to move. And so there's a joy in it. There's a joy to filmmaking, and there's something very charming about it. I would just want to say that I love the dream sequences that he has.
Mm-hmm.
He has these black and white dream sequences, Truffaut, where the director in the film is going to sleep with all this and having all these anxiety dreams. But one of and he keeps having these little recurring things where there's a little kid with a cane walking down the street.
Did you think he was a little tramp-like? The little kid with the cane, he's wearing a suit?
Yeah, well, he's got a cane. I could see that. Sure. A little tramp action there. Yeah. But he goes to the cinema, and of course the gates are closed, and he's brought the cane for the express purpose of pulling the thing that holds all the photo stills. It has all the photo stills for Citizen Kane thumbtacked to it, and damn if he doesn't steal every one.
There's another scene where he gets a package in the mail, and it's just all of these biographies and essays about famous directors who are all overtly Truffaut's greatest influences. And yeah, you know what, that's making me really like this movie a lot, because especially that dream sequence, it is a very early Truffaut-y looking element that's stuck in the middle of this, and it's not explained, and it's obscure, and it really departs from the rompiness and is this element of very kind of mournful nostalgia that really breaks up this just again, it's like, other than that, there's a lot of like noises off things going on. Like, it's not punchy, it's not like like having this stagey timing, but you're kind of breaking the fourth wall and seeing the chaos behind the scenes, and it's not the deepest film, seemingly.
Right. Well, in a way, it's a postmodern movie. It's a deconstructionist movie. You can call it all of those things. It certainly has a very unique place in Truffaut's canon, and if nothing else, for the fact that it was the movie that made Truffaut and Godard have their big split. I think that had been brewing for a long time, and Godard saw this as an excuse.
So I'm sure you know more about the backstory, but how do you watch this movie and go, I'm never talking to that dude ever again? Yeah, there must have been something deep, some hatchet that was not successfully buried. Do you understand a severe negative reaction like that at all? I mean, I think at its worst, you could say this movie is like, that was fun.
Yeah. I could see how you know, if I was gonna really go after this movie, I would hit it for the editing. I feel like it really lags in places, and it's don't get me wrong, it's the kind of movie that needs to breathe. This is not a quickly edited film, but I still felt like it was probably 8 or 9 minutes too long.
Where I want to take you to task for that. I found it. I'm trying to think. 1973. I mean, I think we're just getting into like some faster paced editing, but not even putting in context. I found it. We have these sort of very jump cutty shots of the movie within the movie that was, I think, would have come off as pretty experimental. It does run 2 hours. I don't know what I'd cut. Is there anything you'd cut? Where do you feel like he was just indulging himself?
Well, I think that he needlessly ran up the budget driving that Triumph off the cliff. I'm a little mad about that. I would not have driven that Triumph off the cliff. That
wasn't him. That was Ferran, the director within the movie.
Right, exactly.
So let's talk about Ferran, because if it drags at all, maybe it's Ferran's fault. What's up with him being deaf? That was just a really cool, weird element of like this
armband,
this iPod shuffle, like
hearing
aid that he's walking around with, and I mean, they used this gag like 5 times, but it got me every time. And I'm sure if you're in the 70s and if you had this, you wouldn't consider this a gag. But when he talks on the telephone, he has to put it to the receiver so he can hear it, and then flip it upside down so he can talk into it. I mean, now I'm just laughing at someone with a disability, I guess. But what do you think is the importance of?
I think he's showing that the director has a serious flaw, has a physical, very noticeable flaw. It
draws a strong counter-distinction between him and the character.
It does. Visually, it gives something different because he's got this metal thing in his left ear for the whole movie.
There is a sense of detachment from him, and other than that, the way that he interacts with people, you were talking about when he's running into like Alphonse, and Alphonse is freaking out, and you see this again as people come to him, they lay their crazy bullshit on him as if this should completely detour his day. He needs to spend all his energy on this, and you just see him go like beat. Okay, yeah, no, we'll take care of that. That's totally important. No worries at all.
Alphonse? Give me an example. What are you talking about?
I'm saying that's Truffaut's reaction to like Alphonse coming and like asking him for money for the brothel, or like anyone coming up and being like, oh, we have an emergency.
No, he's always looking forward, and that's what and that's a great thing for any budding film student, I think, to see is how he's always forward action. He's not getting stuck in anything. Mm-hmm. This guy is not going to let some actorly little vulnerable, I need my head patted today. He's not going to let that impede his production.
And like this director is so different from the idea of the auteur. Is so different than that. He's A, making a really shitty movie, but B, he's like what I've always heard the definition of a director typically is, which is a traffic cop. He's walking around and people are like, this is an emergency, we need to do this. And he's like, okay, go with B. He's like, what gun do we use? Go with C. Like, what color should this be? Like, I don't know. It looks fine.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, I think, and he has that. The mark of a great director is somebody who has the answers to every little detail.
But he's bullshitting in this, and I think
I don't think he's bullshitting. I think when the set production guy comes up to him with that sketch, I think he knows exactly what's going on with that thing.
I mean, wouldn't the logic of that like imply that the movie he's making is a good movie? Like looks like.
And this is okay.
I think he's a good director by like a Hollywood standard.
This is a great I think thing for us to crescendo on and end with, because he's a competent director who is making this film, and there's a great quote where Truffaut he says something about making a film. He sets out to make a great film, and then he realizes that he's going to be lucky if he can make a good one, and then he just wants to finish it. Yeah.
He says at the end that this movie's ruined the studio, and that from now on they're not going to make any movies full of crane shots and people walking around, but they're just going to film on the streets, and it's going to be I forget what he said. It just sounded like a reality television or like Mumblecore was the future, and that he had predicted it. But weirdly, it kind of harkens back to where he started with, and it harkens back to what I think people would consider more deep and legitimate filmmaking, like neorealism or something. And this film, the French title is Le Noir Américain, right? That because and they had the conversation is we call it Day for Night, being a film trick where you're tricking the audience into thinking that you could actually film this at night. And there's something very American, very studio-like, Hollywoodish. Hollywood's brought up. Everyone used to work in Hollywood. And this is Truffaut having gone Hollywood and then being like, look at all this bullshit.
Well, see, there you go. Now I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's if you look at this film as a satire, I think you can understand it. You can comprehend it better. I think it's a satire. I think the film is a straight satire.
Totally. And it does look like so much fun to make a movie.
Especially with François Truffaut, but more importantly, Jacqueline Bisset.
Oh no, it's all about that wardrobe call.
Okay, we can agree to disagree about the advantages.
I gotta IMDb her. I wonder what she's doing these days.
All right, very good. All right, well, thanks for listening, guys. This has been Mike Lacy and Cole Smithey with Le Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.
Thanks.